Joining us now is a man who has spent several of the past years crisscrossing the country and speaking to conservative voters, many of them very likely Fox News viewers. The Daily Show's Jordan Klepper, who is taking over the reins as a guest host of The Daily Show this week. Wow, indeed. Jordan, it is great to have you. Thank you for joining me at this desk.
Yes, thanks for having me.
So I guess I would love to know, as someone who has been in the trenches and understands what is sort of erupting in the center of this country, the schism that seems to be breaking apart these United States. When it comes to Fox and its troubles, this is not something you hear a lot about on Fox News, right? We played that tape. It's the Fox media reporter Howard Kurtz, sort of mentioned it, and then it was gone. And it begs the question, if a tree falls in the forest and only Howard Kurtz makes mention of it for 10 seconds, did it actually happen? Did anyone hear it?
That age-old adage.
That age-old adage. But in terms of, the folks you have talked to in and around sort of conservative gatherings, is it really as extreme as, if it is not covered exhaustively and with fury and passion in conservative media, it does not exist in the outside world? Is that the sense that you got?
Yeah, in a nutshell, yes. I mean, as far as this Dominion case here, first of all, I'm not 100% convinced Rudy Giuliani is not going to have a press conference tomorrow saying we can still win this thing.
Right.
So,
well, there's always that alternative universe.
Might happen. It's definitely in this world. And that you see this full-throated acknowledgement from Fox News. I don't think that's going to resonate with a lot of the people that I talk to. It's no secret we are within these bubbles. And quite frankly, over the last year, the folks that I talk to out on the road have moved on from Fox News. They already got the results they did not like from Fox News. Mild distrust of Donald Trump not winning the election caused so many folks to move over to news that was more comforting to them. The Newsmax, the OANs. So I see something like this and this question of, will there be a reckoning? Will there be an understanding? And quite frankly, what there is there's a go-to for many people just to find the narrative that
works for them. And it really sounds like, from the evidence and discovery that we got, that the real piercing fear on the part of Fox News executives that they were losing their audience, that if they didn't give them the good news they wanted, that calling Arizona for Biden, being the first to do that, was a real problem for them. That was not misplaced fear. That, in fact, the audience was saying, I'm turning the channel because I don't like what I'm hearing. Yeah. Do you get the sense that these folks who used to be maybe perhaps Fox adherents and are now watching OANN or Newsmax or wherever they're getting their news from, that they realize they're looking for comfort, or do they think that it's an issue of truth, or is it both?
Well, I don't know if they fully realize it's comfort that they seek.
Right.
I think there's a misunderstanding of what they watch on Fox. I think seeing this as news, especially seeing that later hour not as entertainment but as news, is a misinformation gap that is crumbling so many parts of this country right now. I think more often than not to bring everything back to Donald Trump, but gosh darn, it's been 2 minutes. We need to get it back there. He infected the brains of so many folks of distrust. Yeah. The media, it's the enemy of the people. He was the #1 guy, the most famous person this planet has ever seen. The media, enemy of the people. The media, enemy of the people. The media, enemy of the people. Now this media is telling you something you don't like. Cool. Well, I don't need to trust them. I've been given permission by the most powerful man on the earth to say that I don't need to trust it right there. And so I don't see these people reckoning with I probably should. No, they've been given permission not to. And why not? If you trust that person, the person who we have agreed to put in a position of power, if that person tells you, don't believe the things you hear, trust me over here, well, then you get a January 6th. You get these moments to find someone else. And I think distrust is healthy in a working society. Misplaced distrust is dangerous.
Yeah, it's really a profound thing to focus on, the idea that Trump gave folks a permission slip, effectively, to only do the things they wanted to, say the things they wanted to, believe the things that made them feel good. Without explicitly saying that, it was kind of like a hall pass for only doing the stuff that feels good to you, everyone else be damned.
He consistently lowered that bar. We lose sight of that. My first interaction with Trump supporters was around the Obama birtherism conspiracy. Yeah. A conspiracy that was embarrassing for anybody to talk on camera about. You wouldn't do that in polite company. After Donald Trump made that thing something you could say on TV, folks were more than happy to share it with me. Now, I don't think he implanted that idea in a lot of people's heads, but he lowered the bar of what's acceptable there. If our culture, if our TV, if our entertainment puts this guy on this pedestal and he's able to say this, then why can't somebody else? And I think that has had an effect in all things, especially this.
You mentioned that you started doing this work before Trump was elected, right? And the latter half of the Obama presidency, I remember just being acutely aware of the way in which the well was being poisoned slowly, or the temperature on the frog in the pot was increasing, right? And then it reaches just a crescendo, an inflection point with the election of Trump. And I guess I wonder, is there anything that would suggest to you that the temperature can once again be turned down? Because I look at the road ahead, right? We have Trump is running for president again. 2024 is going to be a knife fight in a phone booth in the Republican primary. And the potential criminal indictment of the former president, on the current one from the Manhattan DA, but you have other investigations. All of this lends itself to a very combustible environment. And I wonder, how do we prepare for that as news people, as journalists, as citizens? I mean, or is it a foregone conclusion that half the country is just never going to believe what's actually happening in the real world?
No, it's not a foregone conclusion. Our leaders can lead. I think spines on the right can do a lot of good in this country.
Do you think that they can make, because I guess my question would be, if they're giving up on Fox News, the folks you're talking to, then what would it matter if Ted Cruz came out one day and said, you know what, this has all been a lie? What would it matter if Mike Pence went and said in his, testimony to the grand jury, this guy totally incited an insurrection? I mean, what does any of it matter if they'll give up on the very people who are telling them the news about these come to Jesus moments?
I think two things. I think, one, we crave teachers to give us direction. And so I don't think anybody wants to listen to Ted Cruz. But frankly, Ted Cruz and 100 of his buddies are in a position of power that suddenly make Donald Trump the outsider in that way. I think you need a majority of a party to make a choice that's outside of what Donald Trump is. There are no spines on that side that give anybody any indication that what we see here has any negative impact on this country. Or what has to happen is embarrassment with Donald Trump. I talked to Adam Kinzinger, and what he told me, what he thought could happen, and I don't know if I could say this on cable TV, but Donald Trump needs to essentially poop his pants. And it sounds like a joke, but what it is embarrassing, to the point that there's
humiliation.
It's complete humiliation, and I think you saw that with the midterms. Oh, Donald Trump might not be a winner. I built my identity around a man who I see as a winner through and through. And everybody tells me in my community that he's a winner. Oh, he lost to the midterms. Well, that's something I can probably work around. But you see the hesitation. They open up the door for DeSantis. What you need is humiliation around Donald Trump. And it's not going to be a revelation what happened to his past. He's already given us plenty of things that could be a humiliation. But what is humiliating is a bunch of people with spines who used to be with you who say, too much, bro, we're moving on to something else. That could change the temperature.
It would have to be a lot of people, though.
It would have to be a lot of people.
It would have to be like a groundswell of conservatives coming up and saying you're a loser.
Sure, but if those guys who claim patriotism and have those flag pins, if they looked themselves in the mirror, looked at that flag pin and was like, I care about this country, grow a spine, tell this man who's hurting it what is happening, and maybe people will listen to you.
Do you think... I wonder if the loser part of it, the humiliation part of it, actually cuts to the core of the psyche around the folks who want to believe in Trump, who at one point listened to Fox News and maybe are listening to even more conservative fare these days. That part of the sort of central promise of that kind of ideology and that kind of media diet is the belief it offers you a way to feel good about yourself, and that it makes you feel bigger and better than everyone else. And the minute you are not surrounded by winners, hearing digesting the pablum of another winner, the minute you start tuning it out.
100%. I mean, I'm talking to people at rallies who are wearing capes. They feel like Superman.
Who among us, Jordan?
We should be wearing capes. It feels so good to wear capes, and I get that. I think it's the magic trick he pulled is we're not talking politics with Donald Trump. People identify with him. They identify with the MAGA movement. You can have a conversation with somebody about things they want. That's what politics is. You want this, I want this. Can we meet in the middle somewhere? You can't have conversations with the people about who they are, because that's unchangeable. You are protective of that. The MAGA movement, this is who people are. And that That's a really difficult place. We're not trying to find some middle ground about what you want. What I'm trying to do is I'm trying to change who you see as yourself.
Yeah.
So that takes a big movement. Spines help. So I'm hoping maybe that's the direction.
You can see a spine in a mirror when you're looking at it to find out who you are. I don't even know what I mean.
There's a metaphor in there. I don't know. But as soon as you said that, I'm like, no, you're going to see your body before my skeleton.
You'd see your face before your spine.
Maybe.
This is why I am not guest hosting The Daily Show this week.
You know, I'm getting used to it right now.
Why are you here?
Well, because
how can you be here?
I am thirsty for television. You know, I got 4 days on The Daily Show. I'm like, what could I get?
We are so thankful that you are thirsty. Please come back and drink from this well anytime you would like.
I will sup at your table anytime. Thank you.
Many metaphors. This week's guest host for a thing called The Daily Show, Jordan Klepper. Good to see you.
Thank you.